Here's the thing about being a high school basketball coach. You see hundreds of kids who think they're the next big thing. But in 1978, when 15-year-old Michael Jordan walked into Coach Linda Williams's gym, she saw something that scared her. Not his potential. She knew he had that. What scared her was what accepting him onto her team would do to his future, so she made a decision that would haunt her for decades. This isn't just about a coach cutting a player from her team. This is about a woman who sacrificed her own success to create a legend. And when you find out what Coach Linda Williams was really thinking that day, and what she knew about Michael Jordan that nobody else could see, you'll understand that sometimes the greatest act of love looks exactly like cruelty. Linda Williams had been coaching women's basketball at Laney High School in Wilmington, North Carolina for 8 years when Michael Jordan walked into her life. She was tough as nails, demanded excellence from her players, and had turned the Lady Buccaneers into one of the most respected programs in the state. But here's what made Linda different from other coaches. She didn't just see what players were doing on the court. She saw what they were capable of becoming. She understood that her job wasn't just to win games, but to prepare kids for life after high school. In 1978, Linda was also coaching the junior varsity boys team part-time. The head varsity coach, Clifton Herring, was overwhelmed with his teaching load, so Linda stepped in to help with the younger players. It was supposed to be temporary. It ended up being one of the most important coaching assignments in basketball history. That's because Michael Jordan was trying out for the varsity team, and he wasn't going to make it. Michael was 15, barely 5'10", and raw as a piece of uncut wood. He had athleticism, sure, but he also had terrible shooting form, no understanding of team basketball, and the kind of confidence that comes from being naturally gifted without having to work for it. Coach Herring had already decided to cut Michael from varsity. The kid just wasn't ready. But Linda Williams saw something that Herring missed. She saw a kid who was about to give up on basketball entirely if he got rejected one more time. More importantly, she saw a kid who had the potential to be special if someone could teach him how to channel his talent the right way. The day before final cuts were announced, Linda Williams did something that would change basketball history. She asked Coach Herring if she could talk to Michael Jordan. "What for?" Herring asked. "Kid's not making varsity. He needs another year to develop." "That's exactly why I want to talk to him," Linda replied. Linda found Michael in the hallway after school, looking dejected because he knew the cuts were coming and he wasn't optimistic about his chances. "Michael, can I speak with you for a minute?" "Yes, ma'am, Coach Williams." They walked to her office and Linda closed the door. What she said next would torment her for the next 30 years. "Michael, I know you want to make varsity, and I know you think you're ready, but I'm going to tell you something that's going to hurt. And I need you to listen carefully." Michael's heart sank. He knew what was coming. "You're not making varsity this year. Coach Herring's already decided. But before you get upset, I want you to understand why." Michael stared at the floor, trying not to cry. "It's not because you don't have talent. You've got more natural ability than any kid I've seen in 8 years of coaching. But talent without discipline is just wasted potential." Linda leaned forward in her chair. "Michael, if you make varsity this year, you'll ride the bench. You'll get maybe 5 minutes a game, you'll get frustrated, and you'll probably quit basketball by Christmas. Is that what you want?" "No, ma'am." "Then here's what I'm going to offer you. Play JV for me this year. Let me teach you how to really play basketball. Let me show you what it means to work for something instead of just expecting it to come easy." Michael looked up. "You want me to play on the girls' JV team?" "No, son. I want you to play on the boys' JV team, but I'm going to coach you personally. Every day after practice, you and I are going to work on your fundamentals, your shooting, your footwork, your basketball IQ, everything." Linda's voice grew serious. "But I'm warning you, it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. I'm going to push you harder than any coach has ever pushed you. I'm going to make you want to quit a dozen times, and if you can't handle that, then you should just give up basketball now." Michael was quiet for a long moment. "Coach Williams, why are you willing to do all that extra work with me?" Linda smiled. "Because I see something in you that you don't see in yourself yet. But you're going to have to trust me enough to let me bring it out." What happened next was the most brutal and transformative year of Michael Jordan's young life. Linda Williams didn't just coach him, she reconstructed him from the ground up. Every day after regular JV practice, while other kids went home, Michael stayed in the gym with Coach Williams. She broke down every aspect of his game and built it back up the right way. "Your jump shot looks pretty, but it's inconsistent," she told him after their first session. "We're going to start over, from scratch." For 2 weeks, Linda made Michael shoot from 5 feet away from the basket, just 5 feet, over and over, focusing on form, follow-through, and consistency. When Michael complained that he could already make shots from much farther away, Linda shut him down. "I don't care what you can do sometimes, Michael. I care about what you can do every time. Excellence isn't about making spectacular plays. It's about making the right play every single time." Linda worked on more than just his shooting. She taught him how to read defenses, how to move without the ball, how to make his teammates better. Most importantly, she taught him how to practice. "Talent is what you're born with," Linda would say during their sessions. "Skill is what you develop through practice. And heart is what you show when the practice gets so hard you want to quit." Michael wanted to quit almost every day. Linda's sessions were relentless. She made him run suicides until he threw up. She made him practice free throws until his arms ached. She criticized every mistake and demanded perfection in every drill. But here's what Michael didn't realize at the time. Linda Williams was doing more than teaching him basketball. She was teaching him how to become great at anything. By January, something remarkable was happening. Michael wasn't just improving, he was becoming a completely different player. His shot was automatic, his court vision was developing, his basketball IQ was through the roof. More importantly, his attitude had changed. The cocky kid who thought talent was enough had become a young man who understood that greatness requires work. The JV team, led by Michael's improved play, was dominating their league. But Linda knew that wasn't the real victory. The real victory was watching Michael develop the mindset that would carry him through the rest of his career. "Coach Williams," Michael said after a particularly intense practice session, "I need to ask you something." "What's on your mind?" "Why did you really keep me off varsity? I know you could have convinced Coach Herring to give me a spot." Linda had been dreading this question, but she'd known it would come eventually. "Because making varsity would have been the worst thing that could have happened to you." Michael looked confused. "Think about it, Michael. If you'd made varsity, you would have been the worst player on a good team. You would have gotten limited playing time, minimal attention from coaches, and you would have learned to be satisfied with being mediocre." Linda paused. "But by playing JV, you became the best player on a team that needed you. You got to develop leadership skills, you got individual attention from me, and most importantly, you learned that you could improve dramatically if you were willing to work for it." Michael nodded slowly. "So you knew I wasn't ready for varsity?" "No, Michael. I knew varsity wasn't ready for what you could become." What Michael didn't know, what Linda Williams never told him, was that keeping him off varsity had cost her professionally. Coach Herring had wanted to promote Linda to assistant varsity coach with a significant pay raise. But the promotion came with a condition. She had to stop spending so much time on individual player development and focus on team preparation. Linda turned down the promotion. She chose to keep working with Michael instead of advancing her own career. The school administration wasn't happy. They felt Linda was wasting time on one player when she could be helping the entire program. Some parents complained that she was showing favoritism. Other coaches whispered that she was being unprofessional. Linda endured all of it because she believed in what she was doing. But there were nights when she went home and wondered if she was making a mistake. What if Michael didn't develop the way she hoped? What if all this extra work was for nothing? The doubts were especially strong in February, when Michael went through a shooting slump and started complaining about how hard the training was. "Coach Williams, I think I'm ready for varsity now," Michael said after a particularly frustrating practice. "I'm better than half the guys on that team." Linda looked at him sternly. "Michael, are you asking me to quit on you?" "What do you mean? When I agreed to coach you, I made a commitment to help you become the best player you could be, not just good enough for varsity, the best you could be. If you're satisfied with being better than half the varsity team, then we should stop right now." Michael was quiet. "But if you want to be great, not just good, but great, then you need to trust me a little while longer." Michael stayed. At the end of his sophomore year, Michael Jordan had grown 3 inches and developed into a fundamentally sound, mentally tough basketball player. When varsity tryouts came around again, there was no question he would make the team. But the night before tryouts, Linda Williams made a decision that she'd regret for the rest of her life. She decided to tell Michael the truth about why she'd really worked so hard with him. "Michael, before you try out for varsity tomorrow, I need to tell you something. Something I probably should have told you months ago." They were sitting in her office, the same place where she'd first broken his heart a year earlier. "When you didn't make varsity last year, it wasn't just because Coach Herring thought you weren't ready. It was because I convinced him not to take you." Michael's face went white. "What?" "I saw your talent, Michael, but I also saw that you had no idea how to work for anything. You'd been the best player on every team you'd ever been on without really trying. And I knew that if you made varsity as a sophomore, you'd never learn how to push yourself." Linda's voice grew emotional. "So I made a choice. I chose to break your heart in the short term so you could fulfill your potential in the long term. I chose to be the villain in your story so you could become the hero in someone else's." Michael stared at her in shock. You deliberately kept me off the team?" "Yes. Even though you knew I was good enough?" "Especially because I knew you were good enough. Michael, if you'd made varsity last year, you would have been a decent high school player, maybe even a good one, but you never would have become great." Michael stood up abruptly. "I can't believe this. I trusted you. And you should keep trusting me, because everything I did was to help you become the player you are today." But Michael was already walking toward the door. "I don't want to hear any more." He left Linda's office that night feeling betrayed, angry, and confused. The woman who'd spent a year teaching him about basketball had been lying to him the entire time. Michael made varsity the next day, as everyone knew he would, but he barely spoke to Linda Williams for the rest of high school.
Michael Jordan's varsity career was everything Linda had hoped it would be. As a junior and senior, he dominated high school basketball in North Carolina. College scouts flocked to watch him play. He earned a scholarship to the University of North Carolina. Linda Williams watched it all from a distance, proud of what Michael had accomplished, but heartbroken by the way their relationship had ended. Other coaches started asking Linda about her training methods. How had she developed such a polished player in just 1 year? What was her secret? Linda never told them the truth. She never told them that her secret was lying to a 15-year-old boy about why he couldn't play varsity basketball. As Michael's college career took off, then his professional career with the Chicago Bulls, Linda continued coaching at Laney High School. She won several state championships, developed dozens of college players, and became one of the most respected coaches in North Carolina. But she never stopped thinking about Michael Jordan, and she never stopped regretting how their relationship had ended. "I created a monster," she told her husband one night, as they watched Michael win his first NBA championship in 1996. After Michael had won his 4th NBA championship, Linda Williams received a package at school. There was no return address, but she recognized the handwriting immediately. Inside was a letter from Michael Jordan. "Dear Coach Williams, I've been thinking about our conversation in your office 18 years ago, and I owe you an apology. I was angry with you for a long time. I felt like you'd betrayed my trust, like you'd manipulated me for reasons I didn't understand. I thought you'd stolen a year of my basketball career for your own selfish purposes. I was wrong. I've had a lot of coaches over the years, from high school to college to the NBA. I've learned from all of them, but the most important lessons I ever learned came from you during that year I played JV. You taught me that talent without work ethic is worthless. You taught me that being great requires sacrifice. You taught me that sometimes the people who care about you the most are the ones who push you the hardest. Most importantly, you taught me that success isn't about getting what you want immediately. It's about developing the character to handle whatever you achieve. I know now that keeping me off varsity wasn't about basketball. It was about life. You were preparing me not just to be a better player, but to be a better person. I also know that your decision cost you professionally. I've heard about the promotions you turned down, the criticism you faced, the sacrifices you made to work with me individually. Coach Williams, you gave up your own advancement to ensure mine. That's not betrayal, that's love. I'm sorry it took me 18 years to understand what you did for me. I'm sorry I walked away angry instead of walking away grateful. You were right about everything. If I'd made varsity as a sophomore, I would have been satisfied with being good enough. Because of your decision, I was never satisfied with anything less than being the best. Thank you for seeing what I could become before I could see it myself. Thank you for caring more about my future than my feelings. Thank you for being willing to be the villain so I could become who I was meant to be. I hope someday we can talk again. I have a lot more to thank you for. Respectfully yours, Michael Jordan. P.S. I'm starting a basketball camp for kids next summer. I'd be honored if you'd consider helping me run it. I want to teach these kids the same lessons you taught me about work ethic, character, and what it really means to be great." Linda Williams cried when she read that letter. She'd waited 18 years to know that she'd made the right decision. The basketball camp that Michael mentioned in his letter became the Michael Jordan Flight School, one of the most prestigious youth basketball programs in the country, and Linda Williams became its head instructor. For the next 10 years, until her retirement, Linda worked alongside Michael teaching young players the fundamentals of basketball and life. Their partnership became legendary in coaching circles. "Coach Williams taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no," Michael told the campers every year during his opening speech. "She taught me that immediate satisfaction is the enemy of long-term greatness." Linda's approach to coaching never changed. She still demanded excellence, still pushed players harder than they wanted to be pushed, still focused on character development as much as skill development. "Talent gets you noticed," she would tell the young players. "Character gets you remembered." The flight school produced dozens of college players and several NBA stars. But more importantly, it produced young men and women who understood that success in basketball or anything else requires more than natural ability. Today, Linda Williams is retired and living quietly in North Carolina. She's in her 80s now, but she still follows basketball closely and still believes in the philosophy that guided her coaching career. "People ask me if I regret lying to Michael about why he didn't make varsity," Linda says now. "They want to know if I think what I did was ethical. Here's what I tell them. I didn't lie to Michael. I told him he wasn't ready for varsity basketball. That was true. What I didn't tell him was that I was the reason he wasn't ready, because I hadn't taught him how to work yet." Linda pauses when she talks about this, because she knows how controversial her decision was. Could I have taught him those lessons while he was on varsity? Maybe, but probably not. Varsity players don't usually accept intensive individual coaching. They think they've already made it. By keeping Michael on JV, I gave him one more year to be coachable. One more year to develop the habits that would serve him for the rest of his career. One more year to learn that talent alone isn't enough. The results speak for themselves. Michael Jordan became the greatest basketball player of all time, and he's always credited his work ethic and mental toughness as the keys to his success. "Coach Williams didn't just teach me basketball," Michael says now. "She taught me how to become great at anything. The principles she taught me, discipline, persistence, attention to detail, those served me in business, in leadership, in every area of my life." The story of Linda Williams and Michael Jordan has become a case study in coaching philosophy and youth development. Educators, coaches, and parents study their relationship to understand when and how to challenge young people. "What Coach Williams did was risky," explains Dr. Sarah Chen, a sports psychologist who studies coach-athlete relationships. "She bet Michael's short-term happiness against his long-term potential. That kind of decision requires incredible insight and confidence. But it also requires love." Coach Williams wasn't motivated by her own success or recognition. She was motivated by her belief in what Michael could become. The key, according to experts, is that Linda never stopped supporting Michael, even when she was denying him what he wanted. She provided him with alternatives, additional training, and constant encouragement. "Tough love isn't just being tough," Dr. Chen explains. "It's being tough while also being loving." Coach Williams pushed Michael harder than anyone else, but she also invested more time in him than anyone else. Here's what Linda Williams wants people to understand about her decision to keep Michael Jordan off the varsity team. "I didn't do it to hurt him. I did it to help him." Sometimes those two things look exactly the same. The easy thing would have been to let him make varsity as a sophomore. He would have been happy, his parents would have been happy, and I wouldn't have had to work extra hours every day for a year. But easy isn't always right. Sometimes the right thing is the hard thing. Sometimes helping someone means disappointing them. Sometimes love looks like cruelty. Michael Jordan learned the same lesson from a different perspective. "Coach Williams taught me that the people who really care about you are the ones who hold you to a higher standard than you hold yourself. They're the ones who see your potential even when you don't." She could have taken the easy path and let me be satisfied with being good enough. Instead, she took the hard path and forced me to become great. That's what real coaching is about. That's what real love is about. If this story moves you, remember that there are Linda Williams everywhere. Parents, teachers, coaches, and mentors who are willing to be temporarily unpopular in order to help someone reach their potential. And sometimes, when someone tells you that you're not ready for something you want, they're not holding you back. They're preparing you for something better than you ever imagined. The female coach who turned down Michael Jordan didn't destroy his dreams. She rebuilt them from the ground up, stronger and more durable than they ever could have been otherwise. That's what happens when someone cares more about your future than your feelings. That's what happens when tough love meets unlimited potential. And that's why sometimes the greatest gift anyone can give you is telling you no,